I had been looking forward to my birthday for weeks. Not because of gifts. Not because of a party. Honestly, all I wanted was one quiet evening with Elian. Seattle was wrapped in its usual gray clouds that afternoon, and a light drizzle painted the streets outside my coffee shop near Pike Place Market. Most people complained about the rain, but I loved it. There was something comforting about the way it made the city feel smaller, warmer, and more intimate. Especially on days like this. My birthday. I glanced at the clock above the espresso machine. 5:12 p.m. Only a few more minutes until closing. A smile tugged at my lips as I wiped down the counter. Big plans tonight? One of my regular customers asked while grabbing his coffee. I laughed. Just dinner with my boyfriend. Sounds better than any party. Exactly. After he left, I finished cleaning and locked the front door. The little bell above it jingled one last time. For the first time all day, I felt excited. Elian had promised he'd be home by 7. A simple dinner. A cake. A movie. Nothing fancy. Just us. Sometimes those were the best nights. The drive home was slow because of the rain, but I didn't mind. I kept thinking about the evening ahead. About Elian's smile. About finally having him all to myself after weeks of late-night meetings and endless deadlines. His job had been crazy lately. Software releases, client presentations, emergency projects. It felt like every time I turned around, he was staring at another screen. Tonight was supposed to be different. Tonight was supposed to be ours. When I got home, I immediately started preparing. I changed into a dark blue sweater that Elian always said brought out my eyes. I arranged candles around the dining table. I picked up the chocolate cake I'd ordered earlier. I even placed a small birthday candle in the center. By 6:30, everything was ready. The apartment looked perfect. Warm, cozy, romantic. Exactly how I wanted it. I checked my phone. No messages. No problem. He was probably driving. At 7 o'clock, I lit the candles. 7:15. Still nothing. I sent him a text. Hey, birthday boy is getting hungry. A minute later, I added a laughing emoji. No response. I wasn't worried yet. Seattle traffic could be awful. 7:30 became 8. The excitement I'd been carrying all day began to fade around the edges. I checked my phone again. Nothing. I called him. Straight to voicemail. My stomach tightened. I tried convincing myself it was nothing. Maybe his phone battery died. Maybe he got pulled into one last meeting. No. He knew what today was. He wouldn't forget. Would he? I stood near the apartment window and watched headlights move through the rain below. Every few minutes I glanced toward the front door. Waiting. Listening. Hoping. 8:30. The food was getting cold. 9 o'clock. The candles had almost burned out. The birthday candle sat untouched in the middle of the cake. I finally blew it out myself. The apartment suddenly felt too quiet. Too empty. I sank into a chair and stared at the untouched plates. The worst part wasn't being alone. It was the feeling that maybe I wasn't important enough. Over the last 6 months, I'd adjusted my schedule countless times for Elian. I'd stayed awake waiting for him after midnight. I'd canceled plans when work emergencies came up. I'd listened to him vent about impossible deadlines and difficult clients. I never complained because I loved him. But tonight felt different. Tonight I wanted him to choose me. Just once. My phone remained silent. 9:30. 10 o'clock. The cake had started losing its shape. The frosting wasn't perfect anymore. Kind of how I felt. I walked onto the balcony. Cold air hit my face immediately. Rain drifted through the darkness. Seattle lights shimmered AC. Normally I loved this view. Tonight it just made me feel lonely. I folded my arms and stared into the night. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe there was a perfectly reasonable explanation. But hurt doesn't always listen to logic. Every minute that passed felt personal. Like proof that something else mattered more. 10:30. Still nothing. By now I wasn't angry. I was disappointed. Disappointment always hurt more. I kept replaying every promise he'd made. Every, I'll be there. Every, don't worry. Every, I can't wait. The apartment behind me looked exactly the same as it had 3 hours earlier. Candles, dinner, cake, a birthday celebration frozen in time, waiting for someone who wasn't there. The rain grew heavier. Water collected on the balcony railing. My sweater became damp. I didn't care. I just stood there, waiting. Then finally, at exactly 11:03 p.m., I heard the sound I'd been listening for all night. The front door unlocking. My heart immediately reacted before my brain could stop it. Hope, relief, then anger. I remained facing the city as footsteps entered the apartment. A few seconds later, I heard the door close. Silence. Then a familiar voice, exhausted, breathless, and full of guilt. Adan. I closed my eyes. Elian was finally home, 3 hours late, and whatever happened next was going to change the entire night. Adan. I didn't turn around. The rain continued falling beyond the balcony railing, a soft but relentless Seattle drizzle that seemed determined to soak everything it touched, including whatever was left of my good mood. Behind me, I heard Elian drop his bag near the door. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence stretched between us. Heavy, awkward, painful. Adan, please. His voice sounded exhausted. I hated that I immediately noticed it. Hated that even while I was angry, part of me still worried about him. I kept my eyes fixed on the city lights below. You should go inside. Not until we talk. A bitter laugh escaped me. Now you want to talk? The words came out sharper than I intended. Elian fell silent. When he finally spoke again, his voice was softer. I deserve that. I crossed my arms tighter against my chest. The cold wind pushed raindrops onto my face. At least now nobody could tell if my eyes were watering. I waited for 3 hours. I know. I called you. I know. I texted you. I know. I finally turned around. Elian stood in the balcony doorway. His dark hair was soaked from the rain. His dress shirt was wrinkled. The circles under his eyes made him look like he hadn't slept in days. But right then, I didn't care how tired he looked. I was tired too. Tired of always understanding. Tired of always being patient. Tired of always coming second. You know? I repeated. Then explained to me why I spent my birthday alone. Pain flashed across his face. The question hit exactly where I intended it to. Because honestly, I wanted him to hurt. Just a little. Not because I didn't love him, but because I wanted him to understand how much he'd hurt me. Adan. There was an emergency release tonight. I laughed again. A short, humorless sound. Of course there was. Please don't do that. Do what? Pretend I don't care. My jaw tightened. Then maybe stop giving me reasons to think that. The words hung in the air. For a second, all I could hear was rain hitting metal railings. Elian looked away. That alone told me more than any explanation could. Because he didn't have an answer. At least not a good one. I wasn't choosing work over you. It feels like you did. His shoulders sagged. The fight seemed to leave him all at once. I know. That simple admission caught me off guard. I had expected excuses, arguments, defensiveness, not agreement, not guilt, relief, maybe hope, maybe both. The conversation that followed felt different from everything else that night. Not emotional, not romantic, not angry, practical, honest. The kind of conversation healthy relationships need. We need rules, I said. Elian immediately nodded. Agreed. I raised an eyebrow. That was fast. I work in software. He shrugged. When things break, we create systems. I laughed. Only you would compare our relationship to coding. I'm romantic like that. Clearly. For the next hour, we talked. Really talked. No distractions. No phones. No excuses. Just honesty. We agreed on weekly date nights. Non-negotiable. No work. No interruptions. Just us. We agreed birthdays and anniversaries would be protected time. No meetings. No exceptions. We agreed to communicate earlier when work became overwhelming instead of pretending everything was fine. Most importantly, we agreed to stop assuming the other person already knew how we felt. Because love isn't mind reading. Love is communication. When we finally finished, both of us looked strangely relieved, as if we'd been carrying invisible weight for months, and had finally put it down. Elian reached across the couch and took my hand. A thoughtful smile appeared on his face. You know something? What? I think this fight was good for us. I stared at him. You're lucky I like you. Hear me out. I laughed. Fine. His fingers tightened around mine. If tonight hadn't happened, we'd probably keep ignoring the problem. That part was true. We would have kept pretending everything was okay. Also true. We would have kept drifting. I looked down, because that part hurt. Mostly because I knew he was right. Sometimes problems need to be confronted before they can be fixed. Even painful ones. Especially painful ones. Elian gently lifted my hand and pressed a kiss against my knuckles. The gesture felt familiar now. Comforting. A quiet Remy. There were nights I'd stayed awake worrying about bills, employees, suppliers, and customers. But understanding his stress didn't erase my hurt. It still doesn't make tonight okay. No. He shook his head immediately. It doesn't. The sincerity in his answer made my anger harder to hold on to. Not impossible. Just harder. I looked past him into the apartment. The untouched dinner. The melted cake. The burnt-out candles. Everything I'd planned. Everything we'd missed. When I looked back at Elian, his eyes followed mine. His expression grew even more guilty. I'm sorry. The words were simple. But this time they sounded real. Not automatic. Not convenient. Real. I swallowed hard. Part of me wanted to forgive him immediately. The other part wasn't ready. Not yet. You really hurt me tonight. His eyes met mine. I know. And one apology doesn't magically fix that. I know. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The rain softened slightly. The city lights reflected off the wet balcony floor. Finally, Elian reached into his jacket pocket. I know sorry isn't enough. I frowned. What are you doing? A nervous smile appeared on his face. The first one I'd seen all night. Trying to earn another chance. And slowly, carefully, he pulled out a small box he'd been carrying with him the entire time. The small box looked completely out of place in the middle of our argument. I stared at it. Then at Elian. Then back at the box. What is that? I asked. A nervous smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. Open it. I narrowed my eyes. You think a gift is going to fix this? No. His answer came immediately. I think it might help you understand that I never forgot. For a second, neither of us moved. Rain continued tapping against the balcony railing. Finally, curiosity got the better of me. I took the box from his hands. It was slightly damp from the weather. Carefully, I lifted the lid. The moment I saw what was inside, my heart betrayed me. Chocolate. My favorite. Not just any chocolate. The exact chocolate cake truffles I loved. The ones I bought whenever we visited Seattle's waterfront together. The ones I was always talking about. The ones that somehow disappeared from the box whenever Elian was nearby. I looked up at him. You got these. He nodded. During lunch. My anger faltered slightly. Just slightly. You bought them before all this happened? Yeah. His voice was quiet. I left work during my break because I wanted everything to be perfect tonight. Something uncomfortable twisted inside my chest. Because suddenly the situation wasn't as simple as I'd wanted it to be. If he had forgotten my birthday, being angry would have been easy. But he hadn't forgotten. He had planned. He had tried. Life had simply gotten in the way. That didn't erase the hurt, but it complicated it. I was going to surprise you after dinner, he said. I stared down at the chocolates again. The frustration inside me started fighting with something softer. Something more dangerous. Understanding. I still should have been there. His voice cracked slightly. And I'm sorry I wasn't. For a moment, I couldn't think of anything to say, so I closed the box and handed it back. Elian blinked. You don't want them? I shrugged. I'm still mad. That earned a small laugh from him. A genuine one. The first of the night. Fair. I turned toward the apartment. Come inside before you catch pneumonia. His eyebrows lifted. Is that concern I hear? Don't push your luck. That made him laugh again. And to my annoyance, hearing that laugh made me feel a little better. The warmth of the apartment greeted us as we stepped inside. I headed straight for the living room. Elian followed at a safe distance, like someone approaching a wild animal that might still bite. Honestly, he wasn't entirely wrong. The candles had burned out hours ago. The dinner looked sad. The cake looked worse. I crossed my arms. Happy birthday to me. Elian winced. Okay, yeah, that looks rough. You think? I deserve that too. I sat down on the couch. Elian remained standing, almost like he wasn't sure he had permission to be there. After a moment, I sighed. You can sit. His face brightened slightly. Amazing. We're making progress. I rolled my eyes. Don't ruin it. He immediately sat beside me. Not too close. Just enough space to respect my mood. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. The tension wasn't gone, but it wasn't as sharp anymore. Eventually, Elian glanced toward the ruined birthday cake. Then toward me. Then back toward the cake. I have an idea. I already didn't trust that smile. What? We pretend this cake isn't a disaster. It's literally melting. We call it artistic. I laughed despite myself. A real laugh. The kind I had been trying not to give him all night. The second it escaped, Elian's face lit up. There he is. I immediately pointed a finger at him. Don't what? Get all happy because I laughed. I'm absolutely getting happy because you laughed. I groaned. You're impossible. Yet somehow incredibly handsome. I stared at him. He grinned. I hated how much that grin affected me. 6 months together and it still had the power to weaken my resolve. Flirting won't save you. Maybe not. His eyes softened. But seeing you smile helps. The teasing disappeared from his voice. What remained felt honest. Warm. Real. For a moment we simply looked at each other. The apartment seemed quieter now. The storm outside felt further away. Not gone. Just distant. Elian shifted slightly closer. Not enough to assume forgiveness. Just enough to bridge some of the distance between us. I miss this. I frowned. Miss what? Us talking. The answer surprised me. He continued before I could. Not rushing. Not multitasking. Not answering emails every 5 minutes. His expression grew more serious. I hate what work has done to my schedule lately. I studied him carefully, looking for excuses, looking for empty promises. I didn't find either. Only exhaustion and regret. I miss you too, I admitted quietly. The confession felt vulnerable, but true. Something softened in Elian's eyes. For a second, neither of us moved. Then very gently he reached for my hand, giving me plenty of time to pull away. I didn't. His fingers intertwined with mine. Warm, familiar, comforting. Neither of us spoke. We didn't need to. The simple touch said enough. Said he was sorry. Said I was still hurt. Said we were trying. After a few moments, Elian lifted my hand and pressed a soft kiss against my knuckles. Nothing dramatic. Nothing intense. Just tender. A silent apology. My heart squeezed painfully. Because that was always the problem with loving someone. No matter how angry you became, the feelings never completely disappeared. You know, I said quietly. What? I'm still not fully convinced. He smiled. I know. And you're definitely not forgiven yet. I know that too. I narrowed my eyes. Why do you seem so confident? A mischievous grin appeared. Because I know you. Oh really? Yep. He squeezed my hand gently. And because I've still got a lot more apologizing left to do. I tried to stay serious. I really did. But for the first time all night, I found myself wondering whether maybe, just maybe, the rest of this birthday could still be saved. The rest of the evening unfolded more slowly than either of us expected. Neither of us rushed to fix everything. Neither of us pretended the argument had never happened. Instead, we stayed on the couch, listening to the rain tapping against the windows while the city lights shimmered outside. Seattle looked beautiful at night, especially after a storm. The apartment felt warmer now, not because the temperature had changed, because the distance between us was finally starting to disappear. Elian still held my hand. Every now and then his thumb brushed gently across my knuckles. A small gesture, a familiar one that somehow made me feel safer than any speech ever could. Eventually he stood up. "Wait here." I raised an eyebrow. "That's usually how people get kidnapped in movies." He laughed. "I'll be back in 30 seconds. 29 or I'm calling the police." Very dramatic. I own a coffee shop. Drama comes with the job. Shaking his head, Elian disappeared into the kitchen. A minute later he returned carrying 2 plates and the half-melted birthday cake. I stared at it, then at him, then back at the cake. "You actually brought it." "Of course. It looks terrible. It looks delicious. It looks like it survived a natural disaster." Elian carefully placed it on the coffee table, which is fitting because our relationship just survived one. That earned another reluctant laugh from me. His smile widened immediately. "Good. Keep doing that." "What?" Smiling. I rolled my eyes. "You're obsessed." "With you?" "Absolutely." My cheeks warmed. The annoying thing was that he knew exactly what he was doing. 6 months together had taught him all my weaknesses. And unfortunately, being shamelessly sweet was one of them. We cut 2 slices of cake. Neither slice looked particularly attractive. But after the evening we'd had, appearances didn't matter much anymore. We sat shoulder to shoulder on the couch eating chocolate cake while rain continued falling outside. For the first time all night, things felt normal, comfortable, like us. At one point a bit of frosting ended up on the corner of my mouth. Before I could wipe it away, Elian pointed. "You missed a spot." I grabbed a napkin. Before I could use it, he gently stopped my hand. His eyes met mine. A soft smile appeared on his face. Then he leaned forward and pressed a quick kiss against my cheek, just beside the frosting. Nothing dramatic, nothing overwhelming, just affectionate, warm. My heartbeat immediately betrayed me. Elian noticed. Of course he noticed. His smile grew. "You still blush." "Shut up. It's adorable." "I mean it." "I know." I couldn't stop smiling. And honestly, that annoyed me almost as much as it pleased me. The more we talked, the easier everything became. The tension that had dominated the evening gradually melted away. Conversation flowed naturally. Stories, jokes, random memories. The kind of simple things that often get lost when life becomes too busy. At some point we ended up talking about the day we first met. "You hated my coffee order." "I did not." "You called it ridiculous." "Because it was ridiculous." Elian gasped dramatically. "It was a perfectly normal latte. It had 6 modifications." 5. 6. 5. Pointed at him. "See? This is why I should have stayed mad." He laughed so hard he nearly dropped his plate. The sound filled the apartment, and hearing it made something inside me settle, because I realized how much I'd missed this. Not just him. The laughter, the comfort, the feeling of being completely understood by someone. Eventually our conversation slowed. Not because we ran out of things to say, because neither of us felt the need to fill every silence. The comfortable kind of quiet settled around us. Outside, the rain softened. Inside, the apartment glowed with warm light. Elian shifted slightly closer. Our shoulders touched, then stayed touching. Neither of us moved away. After a while he spoke. "Can I ask you something?" I looked up. "What? What hurt the most tonight?" The question surprised me. Not because he asked it, because he genuinely wanted to know. I thought about it carefully, then answered honestly. It wasn't the dinner. His expression remained focused. It wasn't even the birthday. What was it then? I stared down at my hands. The feeling that I wasn't important. The words came out quieter than I intended. But once they were spoken, I couldn't take them back. Elian's face immediately softened. "Adan. Sometimes it feels like work always wins." The confession hurt, because it was something I'd been carrying for weeks. maybe months. I know your job matters. I looked at him. I know it's important. His eyes never left mine. But sometimes I need to feel important too. For a moment, Elian simply sat there, listening, not interrupting, not defending himself, just listening. And somehow that meant more than anything else. Finally, he reached for my hand again. His voice was barely above a whisper. You are important. I swallowed hard. You don't always show it. I know. There was no argument, no excuse, only honesty. And for some reason, that honesty broke through the last pieces of anger I was holding on to. Elian lifted our joined hands, then gently pressed another kiss against my fingers. Slow, tender, intentional. His eyes met mine. I'm sorry. This time the apology felt different. Not because the words had changed, because I believed them. Every single one. My chest tightened. Emotion lodged itself somewhere in my throat. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I shifted closer, closing the distance myself. The surprise on Elian's face lasted less than a second before relief replaced it. His arm slid around my shoulders, carefully, giving me room to pull away if I wanted. I didn't. Instead, I rested my head against him. The familiar scent of rain and coffee surrounded me. Comforting. Safe. Home. Elian pressed a gentle kiss against my hair, then another against my temple. Neither of us rushed anything. There was no need. The argument had already served its purpose. The hurt had been spoken aloud. The apology had been heard. And now all that remained was rebuilding the connection between us. Piece by piece, moment by moment, the rain continued falling outside, but it no longer sounded lonely. Curled together on the couch, wrapped in warmth and forgiveness, I realized something important. The evening hadn't gone the way either of us planned. The birthday dinner had been ruined. The cake had melted. The argument had hurt. But somehow, sitting there with Elian's arm around me, listening to the storm fade into the background, I felt closer to him than I had in weeks. And for the first time that night, I finally believed we were going to be okay. I must have fallen asleep for a little while. Not fully asleep, just that comfortable state where you're warm, relaxed, and completely content. The kind that only happens when you're beside someone you trust. When I opened my eyes again, the apartment was quieter. The rain had almost stopped. Only an occasional drop tapped against the glass. Seattle's skyline shimmered beyond the windows, reflecting off wet streets below. Elian was still beside me. His arm remained wrapped around my shoulders. The steady rise and fall of his breathing told me he hadn't moved much either. For several moments, neither of us spoke. The silence felt peaceful now. Nothing like the painful silence from earlier. This one felt safe, comfortable, like home. Eventually Elian looked down at me. Feeling better? I pretended to think about it. He laughed softly. That's not a good sign. It means I'm considering your application for forgiveness. Oh, good. He nodded seriously. And what are my chances? I studied him dramatically. Currently under review. Brutal. I couldn't help smiling. The truth was that most of my anger had already faded. The hurt remained, but the anger was gone. What mattered now wasn't what happened. It was what happened next. I sat up slightly and looked toward the city lights. You know what scares me? Elian's expression grew serious immediately. What? I took a deep breath. This becoming normal. He didn't interrupt. I appreciated that. I don't mean missing birthdays. I shook my head. I mean us drifting apart because we're too busy to notice. The words lingered between us. Elian stared down at his hands. For the first time all evening, he looked genuinely afraid. Because he understood exactly what I meant. I think about that too. His answer surprised me. I turned toward him. You do. More than you realize. The confession caught me off guard. For months I had assumed I was the only one worrying. The only one noticing the distance. Apparently I wasn't. Elian leaned back against the couch. His eyes remained fixed on the ceiling. When work started getting crazier, I kept telling myself it was temporary. I listened quietly, One more deadline. He sighed. One more project. A pause. One more late night. Another pause. Then suddenly months passed. The sadness in his voice felt real, painfully real. And somewhere in there, he continued, I stopped protecting the things that mattered. My chest tightened, because I knew exactly what he meant. The things that matter rarely disappear overnight. They fade slowly. One canceled dinner. One missed date. One delayed conversation. One broken promise at a time. Until one day you wake up and realize you're further apart than you ever intended to be. I don't want that. His voice was firm now, determined. I don't want a career that costs me us. The statement hit me harder than I expected. For a moment I simply stared at him, trying to decide whether he truly meant it. Then I looked into his eyes, and I knew. He did. I don't want that either. Something softened across his face. I love you. The words came naturally, simple, honest. His eyes immediately softened. I love you too. Neither of us looked away. Neither of us needed to. The words carried all the meaning themselves. Outside, the rain finally stopped. The city beyond the windows looked transformed. Fresh, bright, clean. Seattle seemed to be breathing again, just like us. I rested my head against Elian's shoulder. His arm wrapped around me automatically. No hesitation, no distance, no uncertainty. For the first time in weeks, everything felt balanced. Not perfect. Relationships never are. But stronger, healthier, more honest. As we sat together watching the city lights reflect across the wet streets below, I realized something important. Love wasn't about choosing each other once. It was about choosing each other again and again. Every day, even when life got messy, even when work became overwhelming, even when mistakes happened, especially then. And somewhere between the fading storm, the empty cake plates, and the promises we'd made to each other, I finally understood that tonight wasn't the story of a ruined birthday. It was the story of two people deciding that what they had was worth protecting. No matter how busy life became, no matter what challenges came next. Because at the end of the day, some things mattered more than work. And for both of us, love was one of them. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of coffee. For a few seconds, I stayed exactly where I was, eyes still closed, enjoying the warmth of the blankets and the peaceful silence filling the apartment. Then I remembered everything. The birthday, the argument, the rain, the long conversation, the promises we'd made. A small smile found its way onto my face. For the first time in weeks, I felt light, relaxed, peace. When I finally opened my eyes, sunlight was peeking through the curtains. That alone felt unusual. Seattle wasn't exactly famous for sunny. I stretched and glanced toward the empty side of the bed. Elian was gone. The smell of fresh coffee drifted in from the kitchen. Curious, I climbed out of bed and followed it. The moment I entered the kitchen, I stopped. Elian stood by the counter wearing a dark t-shirt and jeans. A coffee mug sat beside him. A plate of pancakes rested nearby. The entire kitchen smelled incredible. He turned around and immediately smiled. Good morning, birthday boy. I crossed my arms. My birthday was yesterday. He pointed toward the counter. Actually, according to me, it starts over today. I laughed. What? He walked over carrying a mug. Yesterday was a disaster. A complete disaster. Fair. He handed me the coffee. Which means today is birthday 2.0. I accepted the mug. The warmth immediately spread through my hands. Birthday 2.0? Improved version. Sounds expensive. It is. I narrowed my eyes. What did you do? His grin instantly gave him away. That grin always meant trouble. Good trouble. But trouble. I may have planned something. I groaned dramatically. Elian. What? Whenever you say that, I end up exhausted. He looked far too pleased with himself. No comment. After breakfast, he finally revealed his surprise. A full day together. No laptop. No work calls. No meetings. No interruptions. Just us. and somehow he had already informed his entire team that he would be unavailable. I stared at him in shock. "You actually took a day off?" He shrugged. "Turns out the company survived." I laughed. "Amazing. I know. And nobody called you?" "My phone is off." I nearly dropped my coffee. "Who are you and what have you done with my boyfriend?" That earned a laugh loud enough to echo through the apartment. An hour later, we were walking through downtown Seattle together. The air felt fresh after the previous night's rain. Everything looked brighter, cleaner. The city seemed alive. We wandered through Pike Place Market, stopping at little shops and street vendors. People filled the sidewalks. Musicians played near the market entrance. Tourists crowded around the famous fish market. The entire place buzzed with energy. "This feels nice," I admitted. Elian glanced at me. Yeah. A smile touched my lips. "I missed this." His expression softened. "Me too." For the next few hours we explored without any particular plan. Coffee, bookstores, street performers, waterfront views, simple things. The kind of things couples often forget to do once life becomes busy. Every now and then our hands brushed. Eventually neither of us bothered pretending it was accidental. Our fingers intertwined naturally, comfortably, like they belonged there. By late afternoon we found ourselves near Elliott Bay. The water sparkled beneath the sunlight. Ferries moved across the distance. The Olympic Mountains stood faintly against the horizon. We leaned against the railing together. For several moments, neither of us spoke. The silence felt peaceful, comfortable, the best kind. Finally, Elian broke it. "I'm sorry." I looked over. His eyes remained fixed on the water. "For yesterday." The sincerity in his voice immediately caught my attention. "You already apologized." "I know." He smiled slightly. "I just wanted to say it again." The breeze lifted his hair. For a moment he looked younger, lighter, less burdened. "I never wanted you to feel second place." His voice remained quiet. "You deserve better than that." I studied him carefully. The man standing beside me wasn't perfect. Neither was I. We both made mistakes. We both got things wrong. But relationships weren't built on perfection. They were built on effort, on honesty, on choosing each other even after the difficult days. "I know," I finally said. His shoulders relaxed. A small smile appeared. "Good." I leaned against the railing, looking out across the water, thinking about everything we'd been through in only 6 months. The excitement, the laughter, the challenges, the arguments, the growth. Every part of it mattered, because every part had brought us here, to this moment, to this version of us, stronger than before, a little wiser, a little more honest, a little more in love. Elian gently bumped his shoulder against mine. I smiled. He smiled back. And suddenly the disappointment of the previous night felt very far away. Not forgotten, just transformed into something meaningful. A lesson, turning point, a reminder of what mattered most. As the afternoon sunlight reflected across Elliott Bay, I realized something. The birthday dinner had been ruined. The cake had melted. The evening had gone completely wrong. But somehow, the day that followed had become something better. Not because everything was perfect, because we had chosen each other. Again. And maybe that was what love really was. Not grand gestures, not flawless moments. Just two imperfect people continuing to show up for one another. Day after day, storm after storm, year after year. Standing beside Elian, watching Seattle shine beneath the afternoon sun, I squeezed his hand and smiled, because my birthday hadn't ended with disappointment after all. It had ended exactly where I wanted to be, right beside him. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. It really helps support the channel. What did you think of Adan and Elian's story? Did Elian deserve a second chance after missing Adan's birthday? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your opinion. Also, tell me what kind of romance stories you'd like to see next. Sweet and emotional love stories? Slow burn romance? Friends to lovers stories? emotional relationship drama, second chance romance? And most importantly, how would you rate today's story out of 10? Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next romance story.